I'm Heather, and this is the Audacity to Care. Welcome back to another episode. In today's video, I will be using my platform to allow two candidates to share their story and experiences throughout their campaign. They are running in Texas House District 17, and their names are Mila Flores and Casey Shepard. I sat down with them over a Zoom call and gave them the spotlight to share their story and their experiences and why this is so important to get this information out to their audience. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel so we can share these videos with more people. And now, without further ado, the story begins.
My name's Casey Shepard. I'm running for the U.S. House Congressional Texas District 17 primaries at this point. And I'm running because I feel very strongly that we need to keep the executive branch in check. And I think that would be well qualified to do it.
Hi, my name is Mila. I am also running for Texas Congressional District 17. And I'm excited to be doing this. And I'm running because I am raising kids in the world. I have a pulse on what's going on, and I know I can make a change up there.
Well, thank you both for being here today.
So today, Mila and I are talking about our experiences with a gentleman named J. Gordon Mitchell. I had my own experiences with J. Gordon, and I became extremely concerned after visiting with a lot of the voters in Williamson County, which is where he's originally from. And that is basically why I started looking into the issue and raised some concerns about a month ago. I broached the subject on February 11th at a primary debate because these are candidate viability issues. These are issues that any one of which could easily sink a campaign, if not bring down other Democrats on the ticket. So I'm speaking out about it now because it's something that voters need to know when they are asking themselves who would be the best person to take on Pete Sessions in November. And I'm also talking about it now because Mila has been sharing more of her story. And I think supporting her in speaking her truth is an extremely important objective.
I first wanted to say thank you, Heather, for having us on and listening to my story and Casey's story. And thank you, Casey. I would say Casey and I have what would be a normal, I think, is a great relationship as candidates. We can joke around, we can have lunch, we can sit and talk for hours, and we support each other no matter what happens. I'll be happy if Casey wins, and I'll be happy if I win. And I know we'll support each other. I just wanted to say thank you. I know this is going to be a hard video because it's not something, as Casey can attest to, I've been for months, me and him, I've struggled about whether to talk about this or not. And everybody has the last straw. Everybody gets to the point where if you're not standing up for yourself, you're doing not only yourself an injustice, but society an injustice. So that's why we're speaking. And we have backed everything we have with as many receipts as we have. So we're not speaking on anything that's untrue. People deserve to hear this.
So after the February 11th primary debate, where I addressed 5 issues, I got a lot of blowback from the Democrats in the area about how I was running a smear campaign based off conjecture on the internet. And so I made a extremely crude video that just lists the facts that I was stating, as well as the sources where I got those facts from. I think the best way to say, or the best way to tell the story is that to start with the very last thing, which is that J. Gordon Mitchell, sometime in 2024 or 2025, the story has changed several times, changed his name from James Jim McKay to J. Gordon Mitchell. And the name change, I believe, has more to do with his history than anything he's said about honoring his mother's legacy or trying to escape the racist past of his birth name. And I think when you look at his history, that's really the conclusion you have to come to. So the first thing, and this is in chronological order. So in 2013, before Jim McKay lived in Leander, Texas, and he ran for the school board. And he ran on a Republican school finance platform. It was actually a platform that was being debated in the legislature when he ran. And he was backed by the former Texas Republican Party chair and Reagan administration official Tom Pauken, who is and I think still is a big name in Texas Republican circles, as opposed to his opponent, who was represented by the Democratic state representative Donna Howard. She's a very popular progressive, but that's how he chose to run. It's a nonpartisan race, but he ran on a Republican platform, waving the Republican flag. And if it talks like a duck and walks like a duck. So the video goes through and says where I got this information. One was from a blog, and the other one was the Austin American-Statesman. In 2016, Jim ran, and I believe it was an uncontested seat on the school board. And then in 2020, they had a book controversy. The group Mothers for Liberty, which is still trying to ban books to this day, came to Leander with their list of books that they felt were inappropriate for children to read. And Jim McKay, as he was known then, really latched onto that issue and really kept the issue going when it could have very easily died down, and then ultimately blew it up into such a huge issue that it caused a lot of embarrassment for Leander ISD. So in my video, I said that he supported banning numerous inappropriate books, and there's the link to that, and there's the list of banned books. PEN America is an organization of writers that band together and support each other if their books get banned. And PEN America actually sent Leander ISD a letter after they reviewed the list of books. And in that letter, they said they were extremely alarmed that many of the books targeted or featured authors who are women, LGBTQIA+, or people of color. And when you look at the list, it jumps out at you that a lot of the lists deal with the LGBTQ characters in just their lives and their situation. And these are the sources. So a lot of the sources I found online had mentioned specific little parts of his resignation letter, because in September 2021, he got extremely upset and quit the school board with a year to go in his term. I used the Texas Freedom of Information Act and got a copy of the full resignation email so I could see for myself what he had to say in his own words. He called the books that were just mentioned disgusting, inappropriate material, garbage. And he said that simply forming a review committee to review books for whether or not they were appropriate wasn't enough, because what it requires is for those responsible for the potential psychological abuse of our children to be immediately terminated. So his resignation was because he didn't think that they were banning enough books fast enough, and they weren't terminating the people responsible. So he took a harder line approach than even Mothers for Liberty has taken in the past. And in my video, I just put that is the actual resignation email. In the August 26, 2021 meeting, he at the 5-hour, 10-minute, 33-second mark, he makes some comments about critical race theory, that he is vehemently and adamantly opposed to critical race theory, and goes on to say, to fully accept someone as a human being, I don't have to first hate myself for being born white. I think at the very least that shows a fundamental misunderstanding of systemic racism in the United States, and at worst, hence to some underlying racial bias he might have in his own life.
The resolution saying that we're going to do better, but all of the garbage that we have out there right now, we're just going to let that slide for another year, is absolutely unacceptable to me. I'm just going to say that right up front. Because our friend Paul's been holding up CRT all night, I'm going to speak to CRT for just a second so that I feel as though I've been heard. I am opposed. I am vehemently and adamantly opposed to critical race theory. However, I am in favor of ensuring each person in our district feels seen, valued, and accepted. And so while the far left and the far right activists attempt to marry those concepts, They are distinctly separate. To fully accept someone as a human being, I do not have to first hate myself for being born white. That's how I feel.
So essentially, the way I characterize it here is he got into office essentially as a Republican, or at least running under the Republican flag. While he was in that office, he voted over and over to ban books and actually quit that position on the school board because he didn't feel that they were banning enough books, that it wasn't banning fast enough, and that people weren't being held responsible, immediately terminated when a book came up before the school board, which is an extreme position to take in the book banning process, I guess you'd say. And again, the concerns I raised I was not diving deep into Jay Gordon Mitchell's history. I wasn't looking for dirt or anything along those lines. I knew about the name change and just brushed it off because his explanation sounded logical enough. I had no reason to second guess him. But when I started going to Williamson County and they immediately knew who was in the primary with me and expressed some extreme hatred, there's no other word, for Jim McKay and what they feel he did to the Leander ISC's reputation, that's really when I started taking a closer look. And that's how I found what I found in that video. I firmly believe that the political is personal and the personal is political, and that a lot of his past political actions and the way he's looked at marginalized groups has affected the way he treats people to this day. I've only had a limited number of encounters with Jay Gordon. My first encounter with him was on November 24th. I came to my first candidate forum meeting in McLennan County. And after we both spoke, he kind of pulled me to the side and was giving me the third degree about why are you running? And he was asking, why are you just getting into the race now? And I explained to him that I severely injured my left arm and had just regained the use of my hand months before, and that I finally felt that I was well enough to enter a political campaign. And that's why I made that decision. And he was very, I would say, angry. It's not a stretch to say that he was angry. And he said, well, I just want to let you know that I'm taking this all the way. And as he walked past me, he basically lowered his shoulder and shoulder bumped the arm that I had just explained to him was injured and walked away. Beyond that, I've been harassed here and there by his team, but Jay Gordon or McKay, whatever we're calling him, hasn't said a word to me. And that's not just in one-on-one situations, group situations where there's 3 or 4 of us. He will not address what I've said. He basically just pretends I'm not there. And until February 11th, when I raised these issues, I really wasn't getting harassed much at all. It was just a normal campaign. But after I made the accusations, I guess you'd say, on February 11th, then I started getting harassed, but not nearly to the amount that Mila experienced.
So yes, I have confided in Casey for a couple months now. We've been talking, and even I've told him several times, I think that I need to say something, and then I've chickened out, or I've been like, maybe it's not the time or the place to do this. And then should it be about that? Because we're actually fighting for the people. So why is this even something? But I am one to recognize patterns, and it's been going on since I decided to even run. And I had a final straw. Casey was there for the final straw, so he can attest to this. We were doing a forum together. It was a Zoom forum, and his team was in the comments the whole time, just attacking me. That's their whole MO. Now, when I say his team, I want to explain something. Mitchell did an interview with the Austin American-Statesman, and me and him were in the same interview together. So he did his part, and he talked about his team. And one thing he says is everything that happens through the team happens through all of us. Don't think I'm running. This is my team. It all goes through us. So I want to state that from the beginning, just so we know when I'm saying team, I'm saying Mitchell. They go hand in hand, because you cannot claim leadership without ownership. You can't claim leadership when it works for you and then be like, distance yourself when it doesn't. So it's him. That's how I see it. So to start off, I had said that I was going to run. I had announced it online. Now, I have shared this with Heather. She does have screenshots for all of this I'm saying, and so I'm guessing you'll pop it up when you need to. But I had reached out when I first started running because I found out his daughter was injured. From my understanding, though, from his post, it sounded like his daughter had been injured in a military accident. And us being a military family, we just retired and all of that. I reached out. I said, it's not about politics. We are here for you, brother. Do you have a food train? Just, it's about your kid and we're here for you. And I never heard a response. Not one time, nothing. And so time goes on. And then I start talking to some of the people who, I'm not going to name any counties. So I started talking to some people who worked in a larger county. And they had said, hey, Gordon Mitchell said that if anybody younger than him was running, he was going to drop out because we just need young people doing it. Well, obviously, I'm a millennial. If you look at the voting records in district or who votes in District 17, when you look at actual census, it's between 35 and 45 years old, somewhere around there. I don't want to lie to you, but somewhere around there. I'm 39 years old. I am right there. So the people who are living in these areas are dealing with the same thing that my family's dealing with every day. So it makes sense to have somebody up there who has the view on that, the pulse on that. So I was like, oh, cool. But he didn't drop out and he wouldn't communicate with me. And then I've also sent to Heather every time I've tried to communicate and what his response has been. And every time my campaign manager has tried to communicate and what the response has been. So it's just absolutely no response, or we're just not doing it. Stop contacting us. The very first time me and Casey talked, it was, let's do something together. It was like that, like come over to my house. It was like that. It was not pulling teeth just to get him to talk to me. So time goes on and I post something on Facebook, and I'm being honest about this post. It did offend his team. I had posted and I believe it said something like, I heard my opponent was going to drop out if somebody younger than him ran. Maybe he's not dropping out because I'm not a young white man. And then I posted a quote from a Greek scholar that said something, sometimes it's time to pass the torch, something like that, right? And so I posted that and it was immediate attack. And I sent all the receipts. So it was just immediate attack. You think you should win because you're young. And then it was like I was tagged in other people's pages where they just completely tore me down. And then a bot started attacking my page. Everything I posted, I had to block that. So it was just, I knew it was Mitchell, same thing. And they all have to know what's going on because I know everything that anybody in my team posts at this point. If I don't like it, I'm like, take that down. That is not going to represent me. But this is not happening there whatsoever. So during this time, as the online attacks are going, because my big thing is I'm on socials quite a bit. Again, I'm a millennial, Facebook, Instagram. I understand that and I know how to reach people through that. So that is a big platform for my campaign, reaching people that way. And he has people that age on his team too. So they're engaging on my social media. So I finally reached out to some of the elders of this party and this county. And I said, I can't say anything. And they're like, nope, don't sling any dirt. It doesn't matter. Just don't do it. But in the meantime, Mitchell is doing it everywhere on my page and they're using bots for certain things. Now, this is where I start getting to the point where I'm like, it has to be something about my race because it wasn't happening to Casey in the same way. And I hadn't heard about it happening to any other men that he'd ran with. And I am the first Black woman to run in this district. And my treatment was so different. So I get a message from a big podcaster who does politics in a large county in District 17. And he works with the Hispanic community. And somebody in the team sent him a message. And this person works directly in this circle. So I'm saying working with the volunteers is my understanding from the placement of this person in the team. And I'm not going to say any names on this because people can do the research the way they want to. And I'm not going to give anything without receipts. But he pretty much said to, my last name is Flores. He said to this Hispanic podcaster, hey, you guys can have her. She's not a real Democrat. You guys can go ahead and have her. And he sent it to the Hispanic one with my name being Flores. Now, for a minute, I was like, maybe I'm thinking too much into it. But no, I'm not, because stuff continues. It goes on. So just again, I confide with the elders and they're like, nope, don't say anything. It's horrible. We'll talk to them. But just keep on focus on the people. And I'm like, this is about the people. But also I'm starting again to recognize patterns. I'm like, these bots are attacking in a certain way. Things are being said in a certain way. This is getting harder and harder. And I even said to my husband at certain points, I was like, I really want to fight and I want to do this. I can fight a Republican. I can fight MAGA. Let me, Adam. My mom voice is on point. I can do this. But the fact that I'm being attacked by somebody that I'm not allowed to say anything about, I can't defend myself when it's posted, and I'm continuing to block bots and all this. And I feel like it's coming from his team. I don't know what to do about this. So my first encounter with Gordon Mitchell. So at this point, the only thing I'd ever said online is my opponent said he would drop out. This is the only thing I'd said online. And mind you, there's receipts here too. I apologized. I was like, I did not mean to offend anybody by that. And if I did offend anybody, I apologize. I'll be more careful about what I say because I wasn't trying to offend anybody. But what I said was powerful. I was the first Black woman to run. And I'm not going to take that and make it small because it matters. That's something I'm going to pass down to my girls. And my granddaughters are going to know this. That's a big deal generationally from a family. I have the last slave who was in my family. That was in Texas. That's amazing to me that I can pass this on. But to feel small, I can't even talk about it because then I think I deserve it. So my first time meeting J. Gordon Mitchell, we went to a Christmas party and we're actually in the Waco area for this Christmas party. So I'm going to go ahead and blow on somebody, Donna Wright. She's no longer in the Waco area, but she has been like a mother to me during this thing and never ever talking bad about anybody, but 100% understanding my experiences when I'm coming to her and just been a big support for me. And she's now moved out of the McLennan County area. And now I'm telling her stuff and she's like, keep going, girl. And I do appreciate her. She's the one who has made me actually continue to do this and in kind of way. So I wanted to just shout her out. I love her. She was there and some of the people I'd met were there. Mind you, one of the things Mitchell's team says is that I have not been present, but I was not asked by the Texas Majority PAC to even do this. That's a whole nother story. You guys can look at my stuff to look at how I started all this, but I didn't even decide to run and fill out my paperwork until the very end of October. That's when I started filling it out. And so I had 1 month to get everything in order to try to be able to run and be effective by the time it was time to file in December. And they gerrymandered me. So they cut me out of my district. So to get to the core of my district, I have to drive 3 hours, which I'm happy doing. But at the same time, I didn't give up because they did that. I'm like, nope, screw them. I'm doing this. I promised. So we're doing it, right? So it's time to meet him. I'm there with all these people. It's new. This is the first time I've been around people where I can actually talk face to face. So somebody takes me up to Gordon Mitchell to introduce me to him. I shook Casey's hand, but Casey, do you remember that? How they pulled me away from you to go meet him?
I actually thought those were members of your campaign team taking you to meet someone important.
It was his team taking me to meet him.
Well, I now realize that it was his campaign manager was the main one. Literally came over and grabbed your arm.
And pulled me over to him because me and Casey got one small handshake and we made eye contact and then they pulled me away. Because he was there. He didn't hear everything that happened, but he was there during this event. So anyway, I shake his hand, I shake Gordon Mitchell's hand, and he pulled me into, he's like, hey, can we talk privately? And I was like, now remember, this is the only thing I've said is my opponent said that he would drop out. That's the only thing I've said. I've not named anybody. Pulls me separately, and I notice he's taking his campaign manager with him. And I did not know it was his campaign manager at this point either. I just knew it was somebody who'd been attacking me online because I said this and who said I needed to give the person who I was talking about a personal apology. I'm running against two dudes. Casey, I should have just called Casey and just been like, I'm sorry, because I didn't name anybody. I just said my opponent. So when I see that he has somebody with him, I'm like, no, because I was there with my son, 13-year-old son, and my husband. And so I grabbed my husband. I was like, no, now I'm not going by myself. Now, once we got in there, Anthony, my husband, has also put out a statement about his idea. I would say about my husband, he's a 22-year veteran. This man does not exaggerate or lie, and he catches me when I exaggerate. This whole time when I've been trying to form how to talk to everybody, I'm just like, I don't want to, I want everything just to be so transparent, and that's what I believe in. So I'm not saying anything that there's not receipts for. So my husband has a separate statement. We can play that or give a link to that, but he has a statement as well. But this is my experience and this is what happened to me, and you can hear from his point of view. I'll say this too, according to Gordon Mitchell, he has a secret recording of this. The very first time I met him, apparently he recorded this conversation and has been telling perfect strangers, but I found out, and we'll get to that. That's a whole other part. So he starts talking, and when he starts talking, we're going to act like this is a plate here. So I'm standing over here. I'm standing on this side, right? And he has his plate, and this is my face, right? You can see my face. So he's like pointing it like that when he's talking to me. And he's telling me, this is how it starts. He's telling me that his first thing he says is, you will not sling dirt at me. We're not doing this slinging dirt online things. And then he segues into, and by the way, your campaign signs aren't legal. And I was like, he's like, you don't have a disclaimer on there. And he goes, somebody who is wanting to turn them in has told me this. And I told them, well, let me just talk to her. So I'm just saying about slinging dirt thing and also your campaign signs. I caught on to what he was doing. I'm not a dumb woman. And so I was like, so you're saying if I sling dirt, you're going to turn my campaign signs in? And he's like, no, that's not what I'm saying. And I was like, why does the same sentence? I'm not an idiot here. So he got to the point though, where he was talking to me and his plate was probably about, moved it to this hand. And that's when the finger came out. And it was probably about 6 inches from my face. So at this point, my husband is there. If anybody has been around me and my husband, he opens my door. This man pulls out my seat. He doesn't play. We've been together a long time and we love each other very much. And when he sees a man talking to his wife that way and also talking to me like I'm an idiot, I will paraphrase here too. I would love to hear the recording, and I'm going to cuss when I say this because this is what my husband said. And if they ever release the recording or play it, I know he said something to this extent. He said, I don't give a fuck who you are. You will not put your finger in my wife's face. I don't care who you are. But I will tell you, it took 3 times. And I saw him every time it happened from my peripherals, just like tightening up. He's been a combat veteran. 6 deployments, 4 combat. He does not play about his wife. So at this point, him and Gordon started arguing back and forth. And I give my husband like the look like, just leave. I can deal with this at this point. He's not going to point his finger anymore. He's not going to talk down to me anymore. Did he continue to? Yes. And at that point, my husband just left. So we go back and forth and are arguing. What you're doing is you're kind of threatening me. You're threatening me with my signs. He does not think he is. We go back and forth. And eventually he says at the end, I feel like I've just been attacked for 15 minutes. And I just look at him standing there. And in my head, I was thinking of all those times where I spoke up for myself. You're not going to threaten me. You're not going to treat me like I'm less than you. I'm an educated, strong person. That does not mean I'm an angry and aggressive person. And I knew as soon as he said that, I was like, he's probably going to play this off somehow. But I had no idea he was recording me. So again, I'd love to hear it because Casey's been around me. Anybody who's been around me, I am a very kind person. I don't have a loud voice. I'm pretty quiet. I'm funny. I like to laugh. I'm not going to sit there and be a bitch to you if you're being like a good person. And I was like, oh, these guys are off to attack. My husband, when he explains it, he says he felt immediately that he felt like it was a threatening situation. And that is why he was like, nope. And he had to step out because he had to let me handle it because he's not running, I am. And he needed me to stand on my own 2 feet. So that was my first introduction. So I walked out after that. And you know what those elders told me? Don't say anything. We're not talking about it. If you say anything, it's going to make the Democratic Party look bad. And I'm just like, well, I'll swallow this. But again, it's reminiscent to having done careers and everything where I had to prove myself 10 times as harder and not speak up for myself because I just need to go with the flow. What's the reason I'm running? It is to fight that. So just me shutting up and smiling and being quiet and just, am I here for the people? Yes, but I'm also people. And me allowing disrespect to happen to me, again, is why I'm speaking out. It's not helping anybody. If I can't stand up for myself, who else am I going to stand up for? So that's when it first got very personal. So me and my campaign manager, and who is my brother, Aaron, which they like to talk about him because he is my little brother, but also he's a Republican saying he's in the middle now. But he also has his degree in political science. He's also my brother and would never do anything that would hurt me. And he's very smart and has been able to give me so many pointers about the Republican side. And one thing I've always said in my page is that anything that I say comes out of my mouth that has nothing to do with anybody that works for me. If they say something offensive, tell me, I will fire them. Listen to me. The people I'm using is for a very critical reason in order to get where we need to go, to be able to talk to who we need to talk to. So with that being said, we went to a ICE protest. It was my campaign manager, and he can contest all this if anybody wants to talk to him or reach out to him. And then we had hired a new staff. She is a newly graduated college student. She's just amazing. We love her. I call her our fishy. And we call her that because it's our campaign operations director and it says COD. And I was like, oh, I'll just call you Fishy. So anyway, super sweet girl, young, new, getting into politics. And I've had very long conversations with her, but we're excited to have her on our team. So we go to the ICE protest. Mitchell's there. He's handing out his cards, talking to people. So he starts getting closer and closer to my new staffer and myself, and then the campaign manager. So he stops and he actually starts talking to my staffer. And I just look over there. I don't think he realizes that she's on my staff. So I'm just letting her talk because she also is one who really likes to find out different ideas from different politicians. So she's talking to him, and at one point, even looks over at me and he goes, "Hey, Mila." And I look, he goes, "What do you think about Casey Shepherd? Have you ever met him?" And at this point, I'd met Casey one time and I was like, I've met him or whatever, but he was trying to crap on Casey. He was trying to say that Casey was present and had did this late. So I knew at that point he was already talking bad about our opponent. So I was like, oh, but I also knew my staffer and I knew that she was very smart and she would ask questions that were very intelligent the same way she had asked me. So 10, 15 minutes go by and I finally tap on her shoulder because I'm like, is she stuck just talking? I'm going to rescue this girl. Right. So I go over, tap on her shoulder and I was like, "Hey, do you want to go pass out flyers?" And Gordon Mitchell is there and his eyes, they like cash pateled. They were like that big. And then my staffer, she goes, "I just really want you guys to get along and not say mean things about each other." And in my head, I'm like, oh no, I don't know what he said to her. This pisses me off to this day. He comes up to me and he's like, "Give me a hug." And in front of all the people, in front of everything, he tries to hug me and I'm stiff. I'm just like, what is happening? He's like, "We just need to get along." I was like, "That'd be great. I've tried to contact you. This would be a good place to show all the times I tried to contact him. My team has tried to contact him and he said no." And he's like, "We just need to get along. We'll talk. And maybe after primaries, but I don't know, we'll fit something in, just like me and you." At this point, I didn't want to be on his schedule because I saw my staffer's face. And we actually left almost right after that. And she's like, "Are you ready? I'm tired." So we got in the car and everything. I was like, "What happened?" She goes, "I have so much to say." But she looked upset. And I was like, so we got on the highway and just let her be quiet and everything. She goes, she told me kind of, you talked about policy and everything. And then she asked him what he thought about his opponents. So Casey, he had said is absent and everything. But me, the word she used, if I remember correctly, because again, I'm not trying to exaggerate everything, was, I know he said to her that I was aggressive and angry. And I think he used the word caustic. And then he told her, you guys remember the first conversation I talked about where he was saying the sign thing? Apparently they recorded without knowing. Is that legal in Texas? It is legal. He can do that. But the very first meeting, what does that say what he thought about me as an opponent? Because at that point, I hadn't been aggressive. It was my first time meeting him. We're all in this race. I'm going to do the best we can. It is a contest. It is about who does best. You do have to prove yourself over other people. But to treat me that way, no. So again, we're adding to this pattern. So I'm going to segue that. Oh, and it hurts that somebody that was new out of college and for her to think this is how people are. And again, I go to some of the leadership and I say, this happened. Oh, no, just be quiet. You're going to mess up the Democratic Party. We don't want people to think this is happening. No, it's happening. I'm not going to shut up because if I get up there and I shut up, what's going to happen? Nothing's going to get fixed. If we're going to fix it, we need to talk about it now. So we get done with the protest and then we get invited to go to an event in Waco. Casey was there as well. It was a really cool event, lots of energy. Beto was amazing. If you've never seen him talk in person, please go. Like, he does energize. So it was a really great meeting till the very end. And this is what happened at the end. There's a video for it. I felt like when the staffer who sent me this, staffer who took this video is also the same one that Mitchell talked to and said I was an angry, caustic woman and all that. So imagine how she's feeling after seeing this. Now, I've reminded her, this is him. This is not us. And she's also gotten to be around Casey. So she knows that not everybody is like that. She's seen me and Casey's relationship and she follows a lot of people. So I would say this is not normal and it needs to be called out. And that's why we're calling it out. The very end of the Beto O'Rourke event, we all get a chance to go up there, shake his hand, and then stand there and be recognized so everybody can get pictures of the people who are running. So they start calling. They call Casey. Casey goes up. They call J. Gordon Mitchell. He goes up and everybody shakes Beto O'Rourke's hand and then stands in a line facing the crowd in this auditorium. So I start walking up. Beto's standing there and it's time for me to start shaking his hand. And Gordon Mitchell tries to grab him away from shaking my hand. This is a video. I'm not making this up. That y'all can see with your own eyes. So I don't know if he was just trying, at first when I saw it, I was like, maybe he was just trying to say, oh, remember me from wherever or something like that, which I don't know. It's Beto O'Rourke. You want to talk to him. And so he comes and shakes my hand, just ignores Mitchell. And then it's time for me to go stand and I'm supposed to be standing next to Beto. So after I shake his hand, Mitchell again goes in, grabs him, shakes his hand, tries to have this conversation, almost tries to stand next to him so that he can stand next to him. And I have to like go around him. That's kind of what it looks like. So I just stand there. I ain't moving. no, you're not going to treat me. I'm not here. First, try to take my hand. My first time meeting him, making eye contact. I was so excited. And then I didn't even share anything about that event because it pissed me off. And so I held up. Did I say anything? Talk to the elders. What do I do about this? This is rude. Like this, look, it's right here. This was in front of 250, 300 people. I don't know how many were there. And it was just in front of everybody. And I got sent this video by my staffer, just like, oh, this is what we're doing. No, it's him. Now there's a debate, and I'm not going to name any names, but there is a specific organization that consistently helps Mitchell. Well, there's staffers in this organization that consistently help Mitchell. A debate was coming up because his staffers are actually running this thing where the debate is. I ask ahead of time. I say, hey, because I'm 99.9% sure Mitchell's team put out a smear piece about me as a Black woman being a white nationalist and me as a mother being somebody who supports child labor. So they put this out. So I asked, I was like, is this going to be fair? Because I know that you guys support him and you guys are very fond of throwing dirt on me and Casey through your organization because you work as staff. And I get these very, very rude emails back. We're actually disappointed you would even ask. All right, so we're at this debate. Casey does his thing. He throws out all the stuff about the name change. You could see in the crowd, they were pissed. They were pissed. Now, Casey, correct me if I'm wrong, because I think you remember this. There was a point when one of the people who works for the organization that was putting this on walked up and handed the MC a note. Did you see that? After that note was handed, a question was asked, and they are very angry. Mitchell is very angry that I got the AFL-CIO endorsement, which I'm so proud of. Thank you, AFL-CIO. It's amazing. My dad works in the union. I was very excited to get that. But there's been attack since then. That's what the article was about, that I supported child labor. They wanted me to get that pulled away. So the question they ask is, how do you support affordability and working wages and all that? So I give my answer, and then he's like, I'd like you to elaborate. And the elaboration was, you say you support the AFL-CIO, yet your merchandise that you have uses companies that support white. Now, I'm paraphrasing it to a certain extent, but they called out pretty much what the article said. And I said, first off, I'm disappointed that you guys would ask these questions, and pretty much went off. Explained everything, which I shouldn't have had to explain in the first place, because this is actually a democratic debate where we're talking about policy and they're just making it very personal. You actually support white nationalism. What's wrong with you? And so that happened. And I knew immediately it was from that. At the end of that debate, I'm sure people have pictures. People remember who were there. Casey was there. Gordon Mitchell kind of wanted me to stop and talk. And we're still on the stage. So we're talking. And he's like, I just want to let you know the dirt throwing thing. I'm not doing anything. I was like, yes, you are. You're doing things. I was like, if your team's doing it, you're doing it. He goes, I don't control what my team does. My team runs the campaign. I was like, no, they didn't, because you told the Austin American Statesman that it's one team. It's all Team Mitchell, and you need to be responsible for what your team's doing. I was like, what about the bots? He goes, I know. And I was like, what about the article, sharing the article? He's like, I wasn't in control. When they asked that question about the AFL-CIO, he said right next to me, he's like, oh, they shouldn't have asked that. What's that mean? You knew it was coming up? You know what I mean? It's just all of these things. And still, shut up, Mila. We're not talking about it. Very last straw. This is the last thing I'll talk about. Again, there's plenty of stuff in between here. Casey was there for this one too. It was a forum, and it was indivisible. It was for an indivisible group. I'm not going to say which one, but it was for one of the Texas indivisible groups. So it's a Zoom chat we have here. We have the option to do a chat in here and throw things on there. So I have a phone set up with a chat on there so I can see that. And then I'm doing video in the other one. So I'm watching both to see if anybody has questions, to see if I could answer. So immediately his team in there, his campaign manager, and then one of the people who also works in his campaign for the Austin American Statesman interview, they immediately attacked me. They start attacking my campaign manager at first. And then I was just like, this is dumb. We should be talking about what's going on with the people. If you can't find anything to attack me about and you're starting to have to attack people that work with me, obviously I have a good past. They think you can't find anything. And so they're like, oh, but your brother said this 5 years ago. And it's like, fine, whatever. Go talk to him about it. My policies are mine. Go through my stuff 5 years ago. Have I changed? Not a bit. So anyway, and it got to the point where we were talking about immigration and claiming asylum. Now, the question was asked, can you claim asylum only when you're in the United States, or can you claim it at the border as well? I said you can do either. You can claim asylum when you're in the United States, but you can also claim asylum at the border. That's the law. Now, different administrations can set regulations on how it's done, but the Trump administration has not changed the fact that you can still claim asylum at the border and you can still claim it while in country. Are they going to honor that? No, they're probably going to kick you out, but it's a law that you can. So I answered that question, and his team's going back and forth saying I was wrong. And so I do have a master's in criminal justice with a concentration in homeland security. I've been through it. I've learned these things. And so they thought I was wrong. And so his campaign manager, I'm paraphrasing it, Casey was there and can contest to this as well, but she said, maybe you need to work harder on your master's degree, or maybe you need to retake your master's degree, pretty much in a sense saying you're not educated. But I was right. It doesn't matter if I was right or wrong. What matters is what was said. And this is Team Mitchell. So you're getting to the point where you're being nasty enough to say I'm uneducated. No, to treat me, point your finger in my face as a woman, to talk down on me, and to have secret recordings. And I know you're telling everybody this. If you told somebody you didn't even know was my staff or a stranger this, who are you playing it for? Have you edited it? I'd like to hear it, because it's going around. And I think I have actually been talking to legal. I'm perfectly fine seeing this. I would like to hear the recording. I think it should be sent to me and it's full everything, because they're not playing it and it's something that they're using. But what I'm saying is everything I've said, it's this big arch of nastiness, and it fits under one thing to me because I've been treated this way: misogyny and racism, period. So not only do we have dishonesty with the name change, we now have the behavior towards me, and it's not right. And I've been treated badly by white men. I have, but in the sense that it's just a constant attack mode, and it's starting to get down to character and who I am, and saying I'm uneducated. She doesn't think she said that, but that is what she said, period. That's it. So that's pretty much what has happened to me. And I'm not being quiet anymore because it got down to character. If you're talking about my policy or saying, oh, your brother's a Republican, I don't care. I'm going to blow it off. But that hurt. I didn't even know how to respond with that. And me and Casey talked right after it. We were just like, what the heck? What did we do with this? And that was it. So I'm saying something. This has been my treatment, from the fake hug in the street to the secret recordings to the fingers in the face to talking down to the shoulder with Casey to saying I'm uneducated to not even contacting me to give me a chance, because I've tried, and ever since. That's been my experience. It all ties together. This is not a viable candidate. I feel like he's a wolf in sheep's clothing who doesn't have respect for people. And if he treats me that way, how is he going to treat other women who look like me, who are more and more getting up there?
Besides the big incidents that Mila was just talking about, there's also a daily harassment of some sort. Every day, there's some new person making comments on the Facebook post, or basically harassing us at forums and that sort of thing. And with Mila, it really is death by 1,000 cuts. It's just constant harassment.
They will align to have several of his people be there to destroy me and try to. And they have. This last forum, they said something, and it actually, I think it was, she had said the education thing, and I was trying to answer something, but it popped up and I read it and immediately got off track and was like, that's it. I had to stop the question. They didn't know that I had just read that, but Casey was there. I was like, somebody knocked on my door. That's not what happened. But I had to make an excuse because I was, are you serious? I was so shocked that they put that. And I'm over it, and it needs to be called out. And there's specific people who do it. People who go on my page, they can see it. There's specific people. And again, I'm not going to name names, but it's all people who work on his team. The same people who are saying those things on my page, you go to his webpage, all listed as his staff.
The young woman who works on Jay Gordon's team, but also is involved in some of these local progressive groups, had already updated the voter's guide to include the allegations that came from this ridiculous. But the day that happened, I got a series of text messages from Kelly, and including a link to the white nationalist garbage. And she said, just for the record, we didn't send this, or we didn't make this up. And also, this should make it easier for you to get into the runoff. And I didn't respond. And then about an hour and a half later, she texted, well, there's always the chance that the voters won't find out. Remember, we're not supposed to call attention to candidate concerns, which that's basically what they've done the whole time, is they're trying to look for dirt and hold it over our heads. And so that we won't talk about the issues I was talking about earlier, the name change, the critical race theory stuff, the book banning, which are legitimate, well-documented things. The worst they can do is have someone write an article. I also forgot I had one more experience that I just completely forgot about. It was at one of these candidate forums in McLennan County, and we had another speaking engagement either the night before or 2 nights before. And it was really when I was hitting my stride with my stump speech, and I just killed it. And then Jay Gordon didn't exactly excel with his speech. But we had a candidate forum 2 nights later, and Jay Gordon showed up, but he sat in the crowd, and some of the party elders asked him, "Are you here to speak?" And he said no. And his campaign manager and this young woman who works for the local organizations were both in the crowd. When it was time for questions, normally they just ask a general question. What would you do about taxes? And then the candidates answer. But the two people that work for, one's his campaign manager and the other's his voice on the internet. His campaign manager took out her phone and said, "I'm reading a text I got from a friend who wants to know, and they've been attacking me over my lack of voting over the years," which I haven't been the best voter because I've been cynical about the process. And this is exactly the situation why. But she reads this, pretends to read, and says, "You haven't voted in all these elections, so how can we even trust you in Washington?" And I gave my answer. And then a couple minutes later, the young woman who organizes these or heads up these organizations, she got up with her computer and read, "The state Democratic president said that we should be fighting and kicking them at every turn. And you said that you'd be okay reaching across the aisle to work with them. How do you reconcile that with what the leader of the party says?" And I just repeated, "No, I do believe that on issues where there can be bipartisanship, we should pursue bipartisanship." But so basically, he had two members of his team planted to ask very pointed questions just to me, not to the entire panel. And he just came to watch. It was insulting and it was childish. Basically, he had driven the drive I've had to make an hour and a half to watch me squirm under the weight of these terrible questions. But that summarizes him and his team's behavior in a nutshell. Is they use every opportunity to try to publicly humiliate Mila. Mila much more than me, but both of us to a degree. And then they always throw but if we kept it quiet, we wouldn't have to talk about your bad stuff, but you can't talk about our bad stuff either. And it all basically keeps coming back to his past and the name change and all of the things he did while he was at Leander, running as a Republican. He doesn't want people to find out. That was very obviously the reason for the name change and the reason for at least the way he's treated me. I think Mila and I have fundamentally been treated differently. And I think Mila has pretty much hit the nail on the head that it has to do with gender and race.
There was some. Oh, I remember what it is. Casey mentioned that campaign or that forum he did where Mitchell didn't talk and he had the two people. That happened to me too, my first one. And mine was the woman who runs that organization, who also works in the campaign, and then somebody else who works directly for the campaign, who's one of the primary Facebook attackers. But again, if you say anything, comment anything on any of his posts, you can't do that. You're not allowed to do that. And you will get an email or some type of criticism from somebody who works within that premise. So you want to listen because it's a big county. But what me and Casey have found is we're going to all these other counties now around this one. And for instance, I was in Freestone last night and I felt like so loved and comforted. We were talking about it at the beginning, and that's good. People are excited. So I know our experience of what we've happened, not really feeling welcome in this. It's not the case for everybody. It's just something has happened in that case. And whatever Mitchell has told these people, they believe him. I'm not one to just take it like that. You have to prove to me, if you're going to be representing me, then prove to me that you can actually treat me respectfully. So I think that's it.
Probably more than enough.